All right, ladies and gents, welcome to Duet Night Abyss. This is Yale and Oliver, one of the characters that I have personally been enjoying quite a lot in the game, but there is very little content on the character. For some reason, I'm not entirely sure why, but in this video, I want to kind of do a quick guide. When I say quick, I'll probably ramble on for ages, but basically show you everything related to this character, everything you need to know now, and then, yeah, kind of just go from there. First things first. The reason why you might want to get Yale at this point in time is that when you go to the Echoes of Missteps Immersive Theater, there is currently a buff for Animo characters and for Pyro characters. Same thing in the Immortal Repertoire. These elements will do extra damage. So they'll do 400 damage in these current in this current cycle, but you'll also do less damage when you are not using these elements. So it's very important to note that, you know, during this event cycle, you are using a Pyro or an Animo character. Now, obviously, there's Psyche, there's Lynn, there's Truffle, but I like Yale, and I want to try to make him work in this, and I'm pretty sure I can actually complete the entire thing at the current state because of how good he is. So how do you get Yale? Maybe this is probably a question we should answer before we get into it. Yale is one of those characters that is slightly more rare than some other characters because you actually have to do the Nocturnal Echoes and you have to kill the Crystallophile. You can only do that a couple of times a week to get secret letters. You can get in between 3 and 5 secret letters. So I got 27 completions, so I got 27 letters from 6 completions because the first time you do it, you get it for free. This is the first time ever, so next week I'm only gonna have 5 attempts at this. The reason why he's more rare is, let's say that I go for Yale, well then that means that I cannot be going for Tabati, or Rhythm, or Fantasio, or Hellfire, because it's only, you know, 5 attempts that you get, so you kind of want to spend it wisely. Which is also why I'm making this video, because you might be wondering if Yale is worth it, and the answer is yes. All right, how does this character work? This is
would be much better at fighting than me.
Maybe quite important. He's a yapper. He talks quite a lot. So how does this character work? Yale and Oliver is just solely focused on skill damage. Like the entire kit basically revolves around using bombs and revolves around this ability. The way it works is if you press the skill, you sit on top of a bomb and you drop bombs onto the ground. That's the whole vibe. So like right here, you see him sitting on the skill. You can press the button again to drop a bomb down on the floor. It drops down, there's a cross, and after a while, it explodes. If you have the passive, or if you unlock the passive, or if you upgrade the passive, rather, you can also do damage when you yourself are 2 meters or higher off the ground. So when you use the skill by default, I'm going to show it here. When I use the skill by default, I don't really go too far into the air. But if I, for example, double jump and press it, or what I like doing more is when I helix jump into the air, and then I press it, I'm high up high up above the ground. So not only is that going to can I skip the app? I actually can't skip the app. Not only is that going to give you the extra damage off of the passive, but it's also nice because if you're very far into the air, a lot of enemies cannot hit you. So this is something you always want to be doing. Make sure you are as high up into the air as possible. You can get the passive. This passive, with my current stats, makes it so that dropping a bomb doesn't cost me 9 sanity, but it costs me 6. So obviously, sanity is something you want to manage. Very good passive to get. And then your final passive is basically when you are not, like when Yale is on your team, but you're not currently playing him, so he's one of your combat partners, you get 40% attack boost to pyro damage. So for all your pyro allies. So yeah, that's your bomb. What you can also do is use your ultimate. And your ultimate basically freezes all the possible explosions. So you can see right here, he used his ult, but the bombs, they don't explode. And they will only start exploding once you either let the timer run out, which is 15 seconds, or when you press the button again. So this is ideal because if you know that there's a bunch of enemies stacked together, you press your ult, you drop as many bombs as possible, and then you press your ult again to make them all detonate and just do a metric crap ton of damage. What is quite important to note as well is that you can get sanity back per popper detonated. So you use this, you drop like, I don't know, 5 bombs. That means you're going to get 10 sanity back. So that is quite cool to know. It only costs 20 sanity as well, which is quite cool. Like this character doesn't use a lot of sanity. He uses a lot of sanity, but he uses a lot of like separate casts to use the sanity. It's not like you press the button once and you're out of sanity, like you would be when you use Rebecca ult. Or well, you're not running out of it, but she uses it more frequently than you would on Yale. That being said, that's your abilities. Now, for the weapons, because you are solely based on doing skill damage, the weapon that you use doesn't really matter aside from the passive that it gives you. So for melee weapons, I'm using the Wayne Wraith. As far as I can tell, this is currently best in slot because it gives you skill damage. And for ranged, I'm using Destructo, which gives you skill range, but I think the best in slot would be the X-Crest Duo, which you can only get after reaching account level 51, and then you can buy the secret letters for it. And I'm currently account level 50, so I don't have it yet. I had this leveled up at the skill range, so I'm using it. Don't think it's bad, but it's obviously not ideal. If you don't have it, just use anything, like literally anything that gives you something related to your skills. So like skill duration is not really that helpful, but I don't know, like skill range, for example, here. Now, quite important, it says right here crit damage. Keep in mind that when you are using the character's skills, they don't share the same crit stats that your range and your melee weapons have. So I can have 30% crit chance on my melee weapon and 22 on my ranged weapon. That does not mean that I actually have 50 or 22 or 30 or whatever crit on Yale. I'm going to go a step further and say that I believe that you cannot crit with Yale. There's a couple reasons why. First of all, I've tried testing it. Simply put, you don't have crit stats that show up here. You also don't have crit stats that show up here like you would if you're, for example, if you go to like Psyche and you go to your wedges and you go to here, you actually have the crit chance here because she has a separate wedge tab for her abilities. But for Yale, that tab does not exist, which leads me to believe that you actually can't have crit because it doesn't show anywhere here. I've also tried testing this. I've put Daphne, who has a crit passive. I've put her on the team, and I haven't seen crit numbers pop up. Now, it's possible that the crit numbers exist, but I don't see them. However, I think it's quite unlikely. Knowing this, that kind of leads us straight into what kind of stats we should be looking for to get our demon or to get our damage up as high as possible. So when we go to the demon wedges, this is currently what I am rocking with. Now, I don't think this is the perfect setup, but it is currently what I'm using, and for what I have, this is probably best in slot. So let's go over. Also, maybe quite important, if you're wondering why this is green and why this isn't green, and why it only costs 12 when it should be costing 24, is you can actually adjust a slot track to make it match a specific thing. So for example, here I've got the circle, which means that I could put any circle mod on there, and it is going to only cost half of the cost that it usually would. The problem with this is that you are using a currency like these track shift modules, which are quite rare. But I like Yale a lot, so I'm using them here. Okay, what am I using? So I'm using Inferno Wildfire, which gives me Pyro attack, really nice. Skill damage, really nice. Skill range, it's okay. It's not that good, because generally speaking, your bombs will just hit most enemies, whether you have skill range or not, but it's nice to have. Ifrit's Devouring Wildfire gives me another 30% skill damage, and whenever a Pyro character deals damage, you gain 1 stack that increases your attack by 1% for 15 seconds, up to 120 stacks. The more Pyro characters you have, obviously, the better. At least if I'm reading that correctly, but that might not be the case. Either way, you are doing damage on Yale constantly, so this is an extra buff that you get. Typhon's Prime Serenity is the best mod or demon wedge that you can possibly have on this character, because not only does it give you 75% attack, and this also goes up higher when you have the gold version, but I don't, it also restores 7 sanity above the sanity that you already are restoring. So instead of getting 3 sanity every 3 seconds, you are now getting 10 sanity every 3 seconds, which is insane. Because for harder content, the enemies and the bosses, they will be so tanky that you will not be able to kill them as quickly. And if you're not killing them, you're also not getting your sanity back. So this is like just passive sustain. Insanely good. These 3, to me, they seem necessary on the character. Aside from that, though, the other ones that I'm running are kind of like, eh. I'm running Blaze for extra attack, which is not bad. I like having extra attack, but I don't think it's... I'm assuming there are probably better variants or better versions of Demon Wedges that give me multiple stats that are better. Like if I compare this, for example, to this, it's, you know, this gives me HP and defense and a passive, whereas this only gives me the attack. And then I'm running 3 Blaze Inspos. You can run the same mod, or you can run the same Blaze mods when you have them maxed out. And I'm running them mainly for the attack. The skill efficiency here, so the 12, 12, and 12%, I don't think is that good on Yale. And the reason's quite simple. Your bombs do not consume a lot of sanity. So having efficiency on something that already doesn't consume that much isn't going to have that big of an effect. If, like, to kind of put it simple, if my thing only costs 10 and I have this much, it might only cost 9. Or actually, I guess it, yeah. Actually, I'm not entirely sure how the math works, but it, simply put, because it doesn't consume that much per cast, the efficiency isn't that useful. Why am I running it anyway? The main reason is because I don't really have anything else that I can run. I've looked through them, I've farmed a couple of wedges, but I don't see something that is immediately better. This one, Standfast, doesn't give you anything else besides just attack and defense. Then this is good for the skill range, but you don't need the HP. And then this is okay, but skill duration is not that necessary because, you know, you just want your shit to explode as quickly as possible. So that's why I'm running Blaze Inspo. The only thing that I have farmed that I think could be good in harder content, especially if you are struggling specifically with the boss, is Sphinx's Duel. This basically makes it so that you get 24% damage increase when there are less than 2 enemies within a 20-meter range. So if you're fighting a boss, you're only fighting 1 enemy, that's less than 2, that's a 24% damage increase. So let's say that you are struggling with the bosses, but not with the regular trash ads or the regular waves, then maybe getting one of these on wouldn't be too bad. But for now, that's not a big issue for me. Those are your demon wedges. By the way, here in the middle, I'm using sidestep. Doesn't really matter what you use. Just put something here to get your tolerance a bit higher. I have an extra dodge attempt, which is nice because with Yale, you want to stay in the air as long as possible, and having an extra dodge attempt puts you there. Currently, I am level 60, and these are the stats that I'm looking at. But obviously, the further the game goes, the more that we are going to have and to be able to invest. Your Genimon, I am just using a level 1, what is it called? Ardent Pyro Tail, just to have some extra pyro damage going. Obviously, there are probably good, or like best in slot Genimons. I'm not really too bothered with this just yet, so I'm using this. And it seems to work. Now, I'm gonna go to Margie for a second.
Where are we heading for today's haul?
You can have, in the harder content, you can have combat partners. And your combat partners in this game can count as supports. I haven't been running them because I've been investing in other supports and other characters, as you can see right here. But if you really want to full commit to Yale, keep in mind that both Margie and Lynn have a buff that gives you extra attack when they are the off-field character. So it's a 40% attack buff. Wait, increases attack for self and allies? Actually, I thought this was only specific to Pyro, but the way I'm reading it now, it seems to be specific, or it seems to just work on everyone. So Margie has that, but I think Lynn's is... Yeah, Lynn's is specifically only for Pyro characters. But that actually might mean that they can stack. So you can just put Lynn and Margie if they are leveled up, and if you have this part of the talent, you can put them on your team as off-field characters to just be able to gain a bunch extra damage. I would also recommend just putting some demon wedges on these characters to make them be able to sustain a bit longer or be able to help you. Like, for example, I'm not using...
Emergency supplies are packed. Ready to deploy at any time.
I guess they all yap as much as Yale does. I am currently using Daphne, although I really shouldn't in a team with Yale, because yes, she has the 40% crit chance boost, but it doesn't really matter because Yale is not going to be critting. But even if she's the off-field character, just make sure that you just slap some demon wedges on. I've just put a bunch of attack on her and then some max sanity just so that she can stay alive and she can also spam abilities. That's basically everything in a nutshell.
Oliver would be.
What I want to do now is I want to take you into the immersive theater, and I'm going to take you into the first floor of the immortal repertoire, because I'm assuming this is the I'm not assuming. This is the hardest content that there is in the game currently. So I'm going to take you into Act 1. This is the team. Obviously, ignore the supports because they should be pyro characters to get my pyro damage up. But I haven't really bothered with that just yet. The main purpose here is to kind of showcase how the character works. So as soon as I operated the Vice, my whole game plan for waves is I'm going to look for where there's a lot of enemies. I'm going to pop my ult, go high into the air, drop bombs, repeat. That's all we're going to be doing. So we're up here, enemies spawn over here, press ult, and drop bombs. And hopefully Rebecca doesn't knock everyone out of the way, drop some bombs, and look at the bar in the top, boom, everything's dead. There we go. Same thing again, because I just killed everything. Whoops, kind of wasting some time. Because I killed everything right there, I got all of my sanity back, which means I can just keep doing this. Back in the air, ultimate again. They are dying so quick that the waves don't even have time to spawn. This is the supposedly the hardest content in the game currently, by the way. So explode, make them all explode. Yep, there we go. We're full sanity. We didn't take any damage. We took maybe a tiny bit of shield damage. And yeah. I'm going to skip ahead a tiny bit into Trial 4 so that I can also showcase how the boss fights would work. So I'll see you in a second. We are almost done. Alright, let's see. We need 7 more. Make sure that we're at max sanity, which shouldn't be an issue because everything is just dying so quickly. But I'm going to just drop down and finish these off the normal way. What I didn't mention earlier, but what is quite important for both waves and boss fights is look how far I am up in the air. Like, the bosses usually just don't know how to react to this. Also, check out this damage. Boom. Actually wasn't as impressive as I thought it would be, but yeah. For boss fights, you will notice that your sanity generation is a bit worse because you're not getting all the drops from the enemies. But luckily for this content, there's waves like this that you can kind of just. Oops, I didn't have enough sanity there, but yeah, let's drop one more and then make him explode. There we go. And just from killing most of those enemies alone, we are all the way back to 180 sanity. And I'm taking my time here because I know I'm going to be able to clear. I probably should be doing this a bit more efficiently, but yeah. We've also almost stance broken him, so this should probably be game over. Let's also use ult. And stance break, and it's over. This is the hardest content in the game, by the way. Considering the fact that I'm not even at level 70 yet, this is quite insane. But yeah, that's basically what Yale and Oliver can do. If you are considering getting the character or characters, I would definitely recommend them. They're very fun. I've been enjoying playing them quite a lot. Now, the one downside is that probably the next immersive theater is going to have elements that are not Pyro and Animo, which means that he will not be able to be used for that content. But it doesn't matter. You can use him for anything you want. He just does a bunch of damage. If you have any questions about him, let me know. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.